Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about interactive emails. I'm Alexandra from Stripe, an email design platform, and I will be guiding you through today's discussion. To start, I have a question. Did you know that interactive emails, where users can engage with servers directly in the email, lead to 520% higher response rate than emails that send users to a landing page just via the link? It's true. So interactive content in emails really boosts conversions. So today we are about to talk about interactive email design, exploring how these elements can supercharge engagement when used correctly and where they can miss the mark. Joining us today, two industry experts who truly understand the power and potential of interactive emails. Justin Hu. Hello, Justin.
Hello. Hi.
Justin is a founder of ProofJump, an email proofing platform that streamlines the review and approval process for complex campaigns. With over a decade of experience in email development, Justin has worked extensively on making email interactivity not just possible, but effective. And also Dmitry Kudrenko, founder and CEO of Stripe, an email marketing leader with over 15 years of experience. Dmitro is true advocate for the power of interactivity in email design, and he's here to discuss with Justin the tools and strategies to create compelling, engaging email campaigns that drive results. So today's session's divided into three parts. Justin, who will kick things off with a solo presentation, then Dmitro and Justin will discuss interactive email strategies, and then we will sum up with a QA session where you can ask your questions live. So feel free to ask your questions, drop your anything, your thoughts, and so on. And let's get started. Your words, Dmitro.
Yeah, hello everyone, and thanks Alexandra, and welcome. Yeah, I'm Dmitro Kudrenko, CEO of Stripe, and someone who's been deep in email world for quite a while now. And we planned this webinar some time ago, but decided to postpone because of we wanted to get more insight from our workshop together with Luke Glasner, Justin, and me in the email innovation world. So we use the topic of interactive emails, like get more insight, more feedback, and I hope we will share some insight here today, and Justin will answer some questions. And before we start, I love to share one quick story about Justin, who always do this because of he is actually the first person I ever heard about M for email in one of the conferences more than 7 years ago. And since this, I followed his work very closely, and I love interactive email because of Justin. So I will pass it over to Justin to kick things off. And Justin, the stage is yours.
Hi. Thank you, Mitro. I'm glad to be here today. I want to present to you, like some examples of interactive email, how they can be very beneficial to your campaigns. But also interactive emails have a lot of pitfalls. They're not easy. So hopefully with what I present today, you can get an understanding of what they can do, and also whether it's worth it to implement it or not. And also to look at the different kinds of interactive email because now we have both what we would call kinetic as well as Google AMP. This is the title. Alexandra has sort of made some comments about my background. Basically, I'm a founder of ProofJump. I used to have a blog called Freshing Box that covered a lot of sort of like some of my ideas and what I found, some of the examples of cool emails in there. So, what's interactive email? So the thing is that this term has been thrown about, and it's not really clear what interactive email is. And so today, before I start, I'm going to try to kind of make some clarification. Is it interactivity and animations in email using sort of like HTML techniques and CSS? Is it Google AMP? So Google created a new format called AMP, and that's being used by some other email providers like Yahoo. Is it forms in email where you can enter your text and submit from the email itself? Is it animated GIFs or GIFs? Countdown timers? Is it videos in email? Well, what I think of interactive email is primarily the top three: interactivity animations in email using HTML and CSS. And because to make it clearer, to make it more obvious that we're talking about this, there's a term that's being sort of thrown about in the email community called kinetic. So this is when you hear kinetic email, it's basically referring to this sort of technique of using advanced CSS to achieve interactivity in some email clients, primarily Apple, and then Google AMP, as well as maybe in some forms in email as well. But I don't consider the rest as interactive because technically you don't really interact with them. They look kind of cool. It can be engaging, but I personally don't consider them interactive. So as you can see, interactive email, the support is not universal, all right? And the support for advanced CSS and animations is mainly primarily related to Apple operating systems, which is like Apple Mail or the iOS Mail. However, AMP for email, which it basically AMP for email supports true interactivity. You can sort of kind of code real applications in email. The problem with AMP of email is that it actually requires quite a lot of technical knowledge to pick it up. So it's not something that's for the faint of heart. I'll be going deeper into AMP for email and how you can kind of use it using sort of no-code tools, so to kind of like get some understanding on the background. So why do we want to use interactive emails? I think one of the main benefits is basically to just boost your results in the campaigns. Like if you can put something that is engaging, that sort of like makes your product more compelling, then it makes sense to use interactive emails because you get better returns. But what's also interesting is things like AMP and also forums. You also get to use interactivity to kind of drive sort of data collection. So for things like feedback, things like NPS, you can use a lot of these sort of capabilities to make people sort of give you basically give you feedback through email without actually going to a web page itself. So that definitely will boost, as Alexandra says, up to 500%. In terms of conversions or basically the amount of people that will actually contribute information. And for interactive emails, I'm going to show you some examples. Some of the things you can do, like carousels, accordions, some polls, product selectors. And what's interesting is also gamification. You can kind of like add some kind of like cool things in email, some simple games to drive sort of engagement. But as you'll see also, it's not necessarily a panacea where, just because you do this, it's going to be, great for your results. You kind of have to use some strategy, some forethought before you embark on using interactive email, as it actually requires quite a lot of investment. Here's an example. So like one of the things is interactive email is that you can you can sort of invest as little as you want or as much as you want. The idea is that you can use very simple techniques like what's called hovers. So for example, you can hover a button will sort of like change colors. You can kind of create some some engaging experience there. You can do things like reveal and hover over like a button. It sort of like create some effect. So it's things that you can sort of like put in a little bit of effort using what's called a hover selector when a cursor goes over something, you can make something else sort of change. And that's what's called the sort of like the lowest common denominator, because hover is sort of supported in some email clients like Gmail, whereas most email clients don't support the more sophisticated techniques. So now that you go from a simple like hover interaction, you can add to it, right? You can add to it with sort of a little bit more. So this one uses a click to reveal. So a click to reveal means that these are not my campaigns. Just want to say they are sort of like campaigns you can kind of find on websites like emaillove.com or Really Good Emails, and they have sections like interactivity or interactive email, and you can kind of look through them and see these stuff. I selected this because they kind of help explain like some of the benefits, as well as some of the uh, sort of like interactions that you can do with email. So as you can see here, it's like it uses the same sort of reveal concept, but it adds animations to it, and it adds what's called transitions to it. So instead of just showing something, it sort of like rolls out to it. What's important about interactive email also is that you want to make sure that you have a fallback, right? Because most email clients, Gmail specifically, doesn't support um, a lot of these capabilities. So you want to make sure that, hey, you start with a solid design, right? And then you look at it and say, how can I make this better? What can I do? What kind of progressive? This is a word called progressive enhancement that I can do, that clients with the ability to support this, well, then you can have an enhanced experience. Next is like, here's a carousel. Same thing. You can see that in the original design, it's trying to introduce a car in the email, right? So that needs to be there, like your key message. Then you can say, okay, like I want to make it more cool. How do I do it? Well, I can make a carousel, right? I can make it show the different colors, I can show you different pictures, and so the idea is that you want to basically you want to start with sort of your message, and then you want to sort of embellish it. And this one is a great example where sort of it's the same design, but with a carousel, it makes it a lot more better. And here's also, I'm going to show you two examples where you can sort of take something that's sort of like simple, and you can sort of like really like amp it up, right? So for example, here you can see it's what's a common sort of a technique called hotspots. Basically, you can have an image and you can overlay like different triggers on them. And as you can see, this is the Penguin Random House email, where it kind of shows you basically writers who are writing different content in different countries, and users can sort of like click on one of the hotspots and it displays the content within it. Same thing, you start with also the fallback. You want to make sure that the fallback is works well. So in this case, the fallback is completely different. So there are two ways to do interactive email. One is kind of like embellish it, like the sort of the carousel, and one is sort of just to have a totally different experience. And in this case, the experience is sort of like you see a list of sort of articles there. Now, if you take this concept, the hotspots, and then you take the concept of sort of the reveal, then you add them all together, you can actually have a pretty sort of engaging interactive email. And this one is a very recent one that's done by Action Rocket, which is a agency in the UK for the BBC channel. And how it works is basically you have the email starts with sort of this blank page with sort of like a footprint of a dinosaur, and you click on it, and in the clients that support interactivity, basically it opens up into sort of like a hotspot where you can kind of scroll down and you can pick from the different bones, and clicking on it pops up a quiz, right? So it's like you have gamification in it, and you have sort of reveal in it, you have sort of hotspots in it. So you can do a lot of interactivity. The problem is that there's quite a lot of investment that went into this. I'm not surprised, from planning to development to testing. That's something that's going to take many weeks or even months. What's interesting about this is that the fallback is actually quite simple. It's just a page that has a dinosaur print, and when the user clicks on it, all right, they get taken to a website with the same thing, with the same design. And this is, I guess, one way if you really put a lot of investment into your design, that maybe you want everybody to see it. And this is one way to kind of do it. But you have to understand your audience, right? At the end of the day, if you're a B2B business and you have something like this, there's a good chance the recipient is not going to click over, right? Because they're like, hey, I just want to see what you're trying to say. Is anything interesting for me to read? But in BBC, because they know the audience are engaged with their shows. They know that this is something that will intrigue the audience, and there's a very high chance that when they see something like this, they're going to click. So with everything, you always start with sort of like what's your message and your audience. Is this something that will appeal to your audience or not? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to create. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that this is something that sort of like judges your brand, right? Because if you create interactive email and you have it one shot, like maybe like during the holiday, you create a really cool interactive email, and then the rest of the time you just have like regular emails, it's not going to do anything, right? It's like exercise, right? One day you decide to like, hey, I'm just going to exert myself, do a whole bunch of activity, and then you don't exercise anymore. It's not going to make it healthier, right? So the idea is that either interactivity needs to be part of your brand, as in like it's all edgy, it's cool. It doesn't have to be interactive all the time, but it has to have that kind of jive, right? Or as I'll cover later, is that it needs to be sort of like productized into your message. So, for example, if you have for example, carousels. So if you have an e-commerce store and you created a really cool interactive carousel, then you might want to you can use it in multiple newsletters, right? So in this case, you can recoup your investment. So as I say, the strategy in interactivity is very important. Now we go to AMP. AMP is interesting because AMP almost serves like a totally different use case, right? Because interactivity, in kinetic, which is the sort of like using HTML, CSS, is more like making it fun, making it cool. AMP is sort of like making it practical, because one of the benefits of AMP, which is this new format for Gmail, is that you can have true interactivity. You can sort of send data and retrieve data from sort of like the website, right? So this way you can do like sort of like have a, like here in this case, like a feedback form, right? You can create it, and then you can have the feedback appear in the email itself. In fact, you can even have the form ask for more information after your feedback, which is really powerful. Here's another one where you can sort of like use AMP, and this is from a sort of like a no-code AMP vendor called Spellbound, and it basically allows users to kind of says, hey, your coupon is expiring, what are you going to do with it? So they give you this little widget, and you can sort of like, and it asks you a whole bunch of questions, like, what sort of like product do you normally look for, your background and things like that. And then it will recommend a product. So this is because it requires such a, complicated interactivity that it's, that using AMP, that this is possible using AMP. And then the last one is like, like as Mitro said, we actually did a session, a workshop in Phoenix a couple of weeks ago, and he was showing me the Stripo sort of AMP generator, and I thought it's kind of cool. And then I went to the website and I saw this sort of like a sign up, and I entered my email and I got a whole bunch of sort of AMP examples, and it's kind of cool. Like Mito didn't ask me to kind of promote this, but I thought this is like a really, really cool way to kind of quickly see a whole bunch of AMP examples. If you go to like this website, this link up there, and then you sort of enter your email, they will send you basically a whole bunch of different use cases, and you can actually see them in your own Gmail itself, so you can get an example like what AMP can do. And then if you don't like it, you can always unsubscribe. But yeah, I mean, like if you've always been curious, this is a great way to just get a feel for what AMP can do. So what with AMP, sorry, with interactive email, there's a lot of benefits you can get from it, right? So as I said again, it strengthens the brand perception, right? So like if you are an innovative brand like BBC, there's even an example of Google. So Google actually had they were trying to promote a Nest product, and they had like a whole bunch of like very complicated interactions on I believe their sort of like the smoke detector alarm or something that shows you all the different ways you can use it, and it has all these hotspots, and it uses actually a combination of both kinetic that on clients that support it, like the Apple, and AMP for Gmail. And I'm sure they spend like a lot of time on it, but it's part of their brand, right? It's like Google's cool. So you kind of expect to see these kinds of emails, right? Or if you're edgy, right? You have a kind of cool sort of vibe to it. You can also send stuff like that. But and also like there are a couple of examples. If you go to, as I said, Email Love or Really Good Emails, where gaming companies will have gaming sort of like type functionality in the email because it's about fun. But if your brand isn't all about innovation and fun, you could still use it, but then you have to use it more strategically, right? Because at the end of the day, it does boost engagement and understanding. So like if you have like a product carousel, people are kind of used to seeing these carousels in websites, right? I mean, people are they go to Amazon, they see a product, they see a whole bunch of like thumbnails, and they click through it. If they see an email, they're kind of used to it, they'll do it, and it may increase engagement as well. Like I know one of my colleagues created an email for a real estate website featuring basically a carousel of properties, and after creating it, basically they got a 10 to 20% boost, not just in click-throughs, but also opens as well, because then recipients sort of look forward to it because they find that the emails are cool, but they're also able to see more pictures, and I guess that sort of like creates this anticipation of of this experience in their email. So and what's interesting about putting it in something like a, a real estate email featuring properties is that you can use it in every single email, right? If that's what you do, every email that says, hey, here's a bunch of properties you want to look at, you can reuse that, and therefore although as said, there's a lot of investment that you need to put in to build something like that. Being able to use it over multiple campaigns makes it worth it. But if you're just doing it one time, it can still be worth it, but you have to make your own call on that. And lastly, it's like things like AMP and also like forms in email. They can really help in uplift in data collection. So the idea is that normally you would say, hey, put a button there, a CTA says click here to give you a feedback, and people might click, people might not. But if you have the form right in the email itself, you are definitely going to get a much higher uplift. And so that's something that if you're doing a lot of this sort of like feedback type survey type emails, it's something that you might want to consider. But it can go wrong as well, right? So the idea is that AMP especially is very, very strict in sort of how it renders the content. So if you create an AMP, so what AMP is that basically you literally create a separate email within one email. So you have two separate emails. You have the HTML email and you have the AMP HTML email, and you put it both in one and you send it. And then when an email is received by, say, um, Google, then then it will render the AMP version as long as you are quote unquote whitelisted to send AMP emails. If you have any sort of like any kind of um, typo in there or a mistake in there, Gmail is totally not rendering, right? So if you spend all this time creating it and you have like some mistake, it's just going to fall back to HTML and you waste all the effort. So unlike HTML, which normally if you kind of make one or two mistakes a little bit here and there, or you have a style that's sort of like misspelt, and generally, it might get sort of like you won't have it completely break on you, right? Same thing, rendering fails. So like if you use kinetic emails and you don't test it properly. So something like email and asset litmus. It's very important to have something like this so you can test to a whole range of email clients, because when you first create it, especially when you are experimenting, you will find that this design breaks in many email clients. It will look really bad in Outlook, or certain things will be missing from Gmail app or webmail, and you just won't get the experience that you want to. So you need to spend a lot of time kind of like practicing on these designs as well. And also, at the end of the day, is that you want to make sure that whatever you're doing is not just for fun, right? Again, it has to be about the message. So for example, if your message is to say, hey, I want people to give me feedback, right? It's a sort of like an NPS email, right? You don't want to put like some other non-related cool design in there, because it could distract from your goal. And what happens is that then it might actually go against your design. Just like any email message, right? You want to basically focus on the message itself. So adding interactivity when it doesn't need to be there doesn't necessarily help you. And lastly, it's like it can be a very big time sink, especially when you're trying to troubleshoot things. Basically, when you like, for example, if you create this carousel and you have an arrow, and the arrow sort of like shows up in Gmail, but doesn't work in Gmail, you got to find a way to sort of like hide it, or it might show up in a weird email client like Samsung Mail, right? Is it worthwhile to go and design your email so that it works in Samsung? Is it not? So you have to make a lot of calls uh, when you design your email to say, okay, where do I want it to show up? And when it doesn't show up there, what do I want to show? And and you need to make sure that it works the way you want it to. So to recap, basically, interactive emails is really cool. It can really increase the email results, and but it's definitely not something that's easy to implement. So for C's, you want to make sure which email client you want to support, right? So to be safe, the easiest way email client support is Apple Mail, right? iOS or desktop, because it supports the vast majority of the design. Compatibility. So the idea is that if it doesn't work if this design doesn't work, you need to have good fallbacks in all that in the other email clients. And you want to make sure that, as I said earlier about a CTA, is that does it match your message, right? Or does it match your brand? Doing something one-off, maybe fun, maybe cool, and you may want to do it, right? But it may not have any meaningful impact on your ROI. And lastly is complexity. It's equal to time. And that's the biggest thing, right? At the end of the day, if you don't have either access to talent that can build this, or who want to build this, or an agency that has built this, it could be very expensive. And so, if you have a strategy, if you say, hey, I'm going to productize it, I'm going to create it in my sort of on all my emails going forward, it's going to have this carousel or this module, or some kind of maybe accordion, and then it might be worth the time. but you have to make the decision, right? It's whether it's something that you want to do or not. And as I said again, sometimes even simple non-interactive designs may be fine. Animated GIF or GIF may be enough, right? Because that may actually make it cool and fun. So you got to make your own call on what you want to do with interactive email. So yeah, so feel free to reach out to me if if you have any questions about this, or connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. And yes, it's interesting because in YouTube we have like a quick questionnaire. How often do you use interactive emails in your email campaigns? We have 41 votes here, and only 30% never use it, 50% occasionally, and even 2% in every campaign. I think it's somebody from us, from Stripe, because of every campaign we have at least feedback from them. And yes, please ask your question in the comments. And also I want to mention from the comments, hello to you, to us from Nicole, who was in a conference in Phoenix and said that it was a great workshop. So another way to say thank you to you. Another comment you mentioned, Action Rocket. So Jay Oram sent message that it was very informative and plugin tips. So thank you very much. And you didn't mention, but another person I always refer and always read and who inspire me to do things in interaction email is Mark Robbins. Also sent a message that it's great work, Justin. So continue this. I want to ask you like a question that you put a lot of time and effort into solving some like really tricky and often undocumented, I would say never documented challenges in interactive emails. So what keeps you motivated to keep pushing forward, to continue to do things?
It's a passion, right? It's like, I think for me, interactive email is more of a hobby than a career, right? So it's like it's almost like a puzzle. Every time you want to create something and you want to see, hey, does this work? You're kind of curious. Does this work in Gmail? Could I possibly sort of tweak it enough, that it will work here, or will it work in? Can I make it work in iOS? And not have it break, or in Outlook. So it's always kind of like a big sort of like a puzzle, and it keeps me on my toes. So that's why I find about interactive email.
Yeah, and in at Email Innovation World, we played the game Marry, Kiss, or Kill with the different email technologies, and some people and experts choose to kill AMP, mostly because of, I think it's a technical complexity. What do you think we really need to choose between AMP and kinetic? Or is the real challenge just making interactivity easier to build, no matter the format? What do you think?
Yeah, I think AMP. I'm kind of disappointed in the way Gmail decided to create AMP. I think they took AMP sort of like as a sort of like a side technology and says, oh, we can just slap it onto email, not really understanding how the email ecosystem works. But saying all that, what I'm happy is that you have tools like Stripe and a whole bunch of other no-code vendors. So there are a bunch of vendors out there that actually create tools and modules that will generate AMP. So you don't have to go learn yourself, because I think that the bar is really high for something like that. For interactive email, for say kinetic, it's a bit lower, right? Because you can sort of like add just simple rollover effects, hover effects, and you can start with like small little like, hey, checkbox hacks that you can put into email. So I think at the end of the day, there are ways to sort of get your feet wet, but I think long term we probably need to see products that basically build it for you, so that you don't have to go and muck with all these different hacks.
Yeah, exactly. But returning back to the technical question,
Yeah.
from your experience,
Yep.
which interactive elements, maybe, what is the biggest challenges you face when building interactive emails?
Biggest
What's
challenge?
harder? Yeah, challenge. What's harder for you to do?
I guess you're talking about either whether we're talking about kinetic or we're talking about AMP, right? So for kinetic,
I think it always have to be both. So my personal opinion, we never have to choose. We must do both, because if Gmail doesn't support kinetic and Apple Mail doesn't support AMP.
I think that's a challenge, right? Because for AMP, there's just such a high bar that you really need. You need to go. You can't just test it, right? You need to first get it what you call whitelisted by your domain, by Gmail. And then you can start sending it. So I think the thing about AMP is that you need to be, I guess, strategic about it, right? You need to kind of know what you want to build, why you want to build it, and once you know that, then you can invest time in doing it. So I think it's hard to say in terms of what's my challenge as in part of AMP, because I think the whole platform is quite challenging. But for kinetic, as I said, I think using hover techniques is easy. It's straightforward. You can just change the colors of things. Using checkboxes for things like accordions would also be pretty straightforward. Carousels is a bit harder because you need to have position elements everywhere, right? But once you do that, you can reuse that module in many different emails, because that sort of like interaction is very common. Is that sort of like answer the question?
Yeah, exactly. And just I want to keep our like discussion more live, like a person for all our listeners from YouTube, like join us. So I will mix with their questions and combine them with mine.
Sure.
So we have a question from Samantha. If we are like integrating our Stripe emails into MailChimp, and the interactive elements will work or not. So I want to add here to what Justin said, that we realized about half a year ago that it was a very bad idea trying to focus on technology, like doing AMP, because of first, a lot of impediments on the way to implement this. You need to care about your sender, you need to care about being whitelisted, you need also to care about email clients, which is not very much, only Gmail and Yahoo and other. So we started to build interactivity, which is not relating to the technology. So if we do carousel, it always works with the AMP part and kinetic part, and fallback in a landing page if we need this. So it means that if you create something interactive and then export to MailChimp, in MailChimp you will only have kinetic part, because of MailChimp doesn't support AMP. And AMP is additional MIME type. And it's here what Justin says also. So its kinetic part is much easier to manage, because of you don't need to care who can send this and who cannot send. But if you can add AMP, it's always good, because of you support additional 35% of your general audience. If you want to add something here, Justin, please do this. And
that's Gmail. I think that some email service providers allow you to sort of send an emails using their SMTP, but not using their UI itself, right? So by doing that, you can. I'm not sure if Stripe supports it, but I know that maybe some other vendors support it, where you can sort of configure the builder, like the Stripe builder, to use their SMTP to send out the emails if they don't support AMP. But a few ESPs do. Like I think Klaviyo supports AMP right now, and Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So those people that support AMP, you can definitely export it from Stripe, put it into their builder, and send it out. But Mitro, do you know that does the Stripe support sending emails using the SMTP of other email ESPs?
Yeah, we never send, but we export to other ESPs who can handle AMP. So some providers can do this. For example, some of them, like Salesforce, they have HTML and AMP HTML, but they don't have API to update AMP part. So you can only export AMP part and then put manually into your email.
Yeah. So I think that's the main challenge about AMP is this whole sort of, you need someone who's like at least have some technical understanding of being able to set it up, set up your domain and everything else, and basically paste it into the different parts of the interface in order to send it and also test it. But once you get it working, especially I think for me, it's like it goes back down to, if it's not part of your brand, it needs to be productized. So if you want to send one email and you just want to, and you want to make it AMP and that's it, it's not worth it, right? But if it's sort of like I said, it's part of your sort of feedback email. Like you have a customer, they sign up and they after 3 weeks, or you say, hey, give us your feedback. Or if you have a product that has all these, say, hey, find your perfect product gift or whatever it is that you send to every customer, every so often, like it's kind of a life cycle campaign. Then it can be worth it to kind of use something like AMP, because you're not just creating one-off emails, right? You're creating emails that sort of will work, over and over and over again, and you're going to get some benefit from that. Yeah, what's interesting also is that is a side note is that the first user of AMP was actually Google, and they're using it in Google Docs. So I'm not sure if you realize it, but if you create a Google document and you make a comment on it and you tag somebody, they are actually getting an AMP email, because if you open that email, you will see a small part that says reply to this comment, right? And you can also see any comment by other people that were made after the comment was sent to you. And when you reply to it, you can see it being updated in the email itself. And according to Google, anyways, that when they did that, they found a 500% increase in responses to comments. So I guess that in their case it made sense. So all this is going back to, again, is that it's something that you don't just want to kind of like do because you can kind of do it because it's fun, like me, right? Because I really like interactive email. But if you don't have the skill or the inclination to build it, you should really put a lot of thought in the strategy behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really love your statement that don't send interactivity only because of you can. It has to be useful for your. It should give additional value to your email, not just because of you can send this. And I also like an idea when we speak about the interactivity, always like launching the rockets into space. So it's very expensive to launch one rocket, but when you can return the rocket back and refuel, every next launch cheaper and cheaper. And we can do the same like rocket parts in our email and put them the first place for triggers, and having feedback or NPS or all this questionnaire stuff. You just need to change the question and don't need to develop everything, something new. It always save a time. So you invest only once. And we have a question.
I noticed. Yeah, go ahead.
Please. Make your comment first.
I was looking at the questions too. Like someone said, have you found vibe coding using tools like Cursor helpful? Yes, actually, surprisingly, when AI first came out, building email HTML is like it would just produce garbage. It just didn't know how to do it at all. But now AI is surprisingly good at producing emails that sort of like are compatible across different email clients, and they are also I wouldn't say they will produce error-free interactive emails, but they can sort of like get you started. They can use things like, because in interactive email, as you know, emails don't support JavaScript, so you need to use all kinds of CSS hacks. And these AI now understand that limitations, and it will try to create emails using those hacks. Chances is the things that I've seen in most cases, it will have errors. There will be some issues here. It will break in Outlook or whatever, but it would be on the right track. It will give you, it will make you sort of halfway there, right? Which is better than nothing. And so I've seen definitely, you can use AI as sort of like a starting point to build interactive emails if you want to. I'm not sure how it does in AMP, but maybe Mitro can give some idea about like building AMP emails to AI. I guess you don't need to because with Stripe, but yeah.
And another question: do you have any tips on ensuring the fallback experience is just as engaging, even if it's like more minimal?
Yeah, one is definitely the creating animated images, right? That's one way to do it. You kind of show, instead of having it being interactive, you just have it cycle through. That's definitely one of the easiest way to do it. Other than that is again, it's like you want to start with the message, right? So at the end of the day, you don't think of, hey, how do I create an interactive email and make the fallback engagement? You said, how do I create an engaging email first, right? And then kind of say, hey, does it make sense to create interactive email, right? Unless you're like me and you're just like, I just want to create an interactive email, I don't care. That's a choice.
Yeah. And another thing, I want to add something here. So if you don't have an ability to create interactive email, but you can create fallback, which is a static, but when you click on something,
Yes.
You are redirected to the web page that looks exactly like this email, but interactive. And sometimes,
yeah. That's the example I showed with the BBC with the dinosaurs. Exactly. That's exactly when the email is with interactive. You click and then you basically interacted with the email. With the non-interactive, it's literally the same email, but you see it. But when you click, it takes you to the website, which is great. It's
And we have also a question from Samantha. Does making an email interactive tends to add a lot of bulk to the email size? And also, I would like combine it with another very popular question: is like some marketers are still worrying that interactive emails could hurt deliverability?
okay.
So, what do you think?
Yeah, so it can add a lot of bulk, right? So you have to be very careful because sometimes it involves creating two separate kinds of emails, right? When it supports interactivity, you show certain modules, and then it doesn't, you show another one. So it definitely does add to it, but it just depends how much complexity you want to add there, and you have to be very careful about adding to the size. One of the ways to do it is a lot of people say they actually host a lot of the interactive CSS outside of the email. So you can use the link tag to link to CSS so Apple Mail client actually supports external CSS. So you can actually host it outside if your email tends to be big. The key you need to look for is that it doesn't exceed Gmail's, I think 126 kilobytes or some, or it kind of escapes me, but there's a Gmail limit. And if you hit that, then your email start clipping, and that's no good, right? So you wanna make sure you don't exceed that. But other than that,
Yeah.
for deliver, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
For deliverability, I think it's that it used to be your content is very important, right? Like you put free or you put something like some weird tags in there, it's gonna start going to spam folder. Nowadays, you see that Gmail, they don't focus on that as much. Focus on engagement. Do people open your email? What do people do your email? So do they market spam and things like that? So I think also it's sometimes it's the links in the email. If the links point to like those link shortenness, they may impact your deliverability. But I've not seen content itself being a big deal, especially with Gmail, where they kind of even encourage you to put annotations. So Gmail has another whole product called annotations that uses script tags in there, which is I'm like, wow, that sounds like JavaScript. But they suggest you to put little script tags to support something called annotations, which is sort of like you can Google on it. It's a different product. So I would say interactive email by itself should not affect deliverability.
Yeah, I would also add some notice that it's a good news about AMP that it's additional MIME type and it's unlimited for size. So when you do kinetic fallback, you have to put everything in this 104K, 100 key restriction. And AMP has no restriction. And also in AMP, you can get a dynamic content and you can render emails that could be much bigger than just 100K. Especially it's good for some like catalogs when you have a lot of data and you have to put them in the right place. In AMP, you design only for one block and do for each loop with live data. But it works only for AMP, and it definitely makes the email bigger for kinetic, but it's a price. What it means that if we have interactive email, we mostly have only this interactive part, and it has to be main call to action. It's not just secondary something, it's the main part. It's the goal of email. It's what I think here. And from deliverabilities, again, good news. AMP works only for emails with a good reputation. So you should have all your SPF, DMARC, the KM policy, DMARC policy more than quarantine or reject. You should have a good reputation as a bulk sender. And it means that interactivity is some benefits. If you're good enough, you can do interactive email if it's AMP. For kinetic, certainly not. I think they work together. It never should impact deliverability. Yeah. And we have another question from Vladimir. Is it true that most businesses ignore interactivity in emails, aside from countdown timers and GIFs? What do you think?
I'm not sure what that means. Like, is it true that most business emails, like their email clients,
I think, to be honest, I think that it means that email marketers
they don't use it.
Yeah, they don't use it, but they love countdown timers. They love, and they can prove that it's true. They love easy thing to implement.
I would say, I would say I would say definitely business to consumer. The interactivity is, the kinetic part is bigger, right? Those where you have all these animations and all this cool gamification. Definitely, a B2C. It's more of a B2C market, right? Where you have shopping, e-commerce focused. But for business to business, again, you could definitely use things like forms in email, right? To get feedback. And to do polls, right? To do surveys. And also in AMP, as I said, AMP is more focused on practicality. Like Google is a business, and they use it to to collect responses to comments. So in those cases, I would say AMP definitely is more geared towards. So I would say more geared towards, but definitely supports a lot of use cases that businesses or B2B will use, and kinetic less.
Yes. 1 second. I lost my screen with the comments.
I think there's a comment about accessibility, and yeah, I think there needs to be more research into how kinetic impacts accessibility. I mean, there's a lady by the name of Sarah Gallardo. She's an expert on accessibility in email. I think that she even wrote some article for Stripo that mentions a lot of some of the downsides. But one benefit about accessibility, there's this tags called ARIA tags, AIRA, and you can use those tags to kind of mark certain content as in hidden from these accessibility readers or visible, and you could experiment, with using them to sort of hide some of the interactive stuff from them so that they don't get confused. But definitely there needs to be a lot more research into how we can work together.
Yeah. Interactivity, accessibility, and interactivity usually accessibility experts usually say that, okay, we have to avoid interactivity because of sometimes it's even hard to manage static email to meet all accessibility requirements. And in this May, it was a research from email markup consortium that 98 and 9.9 emails not even meet very basic requirements for accessibility. But you have to, interactivity is not an enemy because of if you want to have email with some restriction, you will never have AMP email because of you cannot work with interactivity for some reason. Or you will use email client that just ignore some extra styles and something, so you will have a static version of email. So I don't think that it's a really, really big problem here, but it's even harder to support than normal static HTML.
I think there's another question about which interactive element would you say is bulletproof, or one that you suggest that we avoid? I think the interactive elements that are being used are usually checkboxes or form elements, and they're fine to be used in interactive emails, as long as you hide them from clients that don't support them. There is no as I said, I don't think there's a universal sort of interactive element that's supported by all email clients. But definitely form elements are used like checkboxes or input fields, but by looking at, there's a website called caniemail.com. If you go to caniemail.com, basically it'll tell you which email clients support which fields. And then there's another website called howtotarget.email. And that website basically tells you how you can create your CSS so that it's only visible in that email client. So with this combination of these two, you should be able to sort of use basically the elements that are supported by a certain email client and hide it from email clients that don't support it.
Yeah. And also it was a question, have you found vibe coding using tools like Cursor helpful in building interactive emails? I remember that in our workshop, we had some tricky situation, and can we solve it right now in live time with ChatGPT? And it suggests a solution. So it's good enough for some basic thing, but how you can use the tools like Cursor, special coding tools for creating interactive emails? Do you have any experience here?
Yeah, I think I answered this question earlier. So ChatGPT, to me right now it's like I usually use ChatGPT, I use Cursor to build these kind of things, but because Cursor usually it sort of looks at whole code base, I feel like Cursor tends to work on like a bigger code base, like a whole app, right? Not single email itself, because that one to me, I can use ChatGPT and it would give me a pretty good answer. So I personally haven't used Cursor in using it specifically for interactive email, but I would imagine as I said, it would create a decent starting point. It probably won't be correct for every email client.
Yeah, to be honest, sometimes it's hard because of you always have to support not only this particular interactivity, but also like M part and a fallback, and they love the way how Cursor works. And my idea, and I really plan to do very soon in a Stripe, the way that it works like a cursor. I think it will be next age in email creation. I say it like prompt to email, when you write what you need and it creates everything based on templates you already prepared in your branded colors and some guidelines. I think it's a future, but for now, I never had like a good experience creating email with a cursor, but it can give you quick solution you can try and implement. And certainly yes, because of there is no good documentation and cursor like you can do with the normal HTML. But AI growing so fast, so fast. Every week something new. Today we say that maybe it's not a good time, and today it works. Maybe we just don't know because of we didn't check the same prompt that morning that didn't work yesterday. It's amazing.
Yep.
Yes.
AI is definitely a game changer in many ways.
Yes. Yeah. So we are out of time now. We have already 1 hour. Thank you, Justin, very much for your insight, for
Thank you for inviting me.
For inspiration, for motivation. Not only me, but thousands of, I don't want to say millions, but for me, it's for everybody who doing interactive emails to your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for being today with us.